Creating a video game is no easy feat, and usually changes, big and small, need to be made for understandable purposes. But not all fixes are as normal as others, because sometimes the motive behind a patch can be absolutely crazy. I'm Josh from What Culture Gaming, and today we're covering ridiculous reasons games had to be changed. First up, the devs didn't want to upset a new employee, Phantasy Star II. Have you ever had that feeling of starting a new job and trying so hard to impress the brass that you overdo it a little bit? Well, in any case, it's hard to imagine the higher-ups being unhappy with your work and not telling you that you're doing something wrong. Unless, of course, you're Sega, in which case some devs are more than happy to keep your work in the final product, even if they aren't too keen on it. A 1993 developer interview with staff who worked on the seminal sci-fi RPG Phantasy Star II tells such a story. According to game designer Kotaro Hayashida, the design of the game's dungeons was passed over to a new employee. This employee, quote, kind of overdid it, leading to a slew of over-designed dungeons that made the game, quote, more about complex dungeons than anything else, which wasn't the original plan. However, rather than scrapping the work of this new employee, the game's writer-director Chieko Aoki decided that she didn't want to hurt their feelings and waste all their effort. Therefore, their work was kept and used, even if it was, quote, with some mixed feelings, as per Hayashida. So the original plan of the game was altered because the bosses just didn't want to discourage their new employee. Now, that's a wholesome work environment if I ever heard of one. Next up, the banter was too much. Forspoken. 2023's Forspoken is an absurd game that is, in a way, kind of brilliant, as it exemplifies all the bad tropes of modern AAA gaming. It's got a bland open world, repetitive gameplay, convoluted combat, and of course writing that's so quippy, sardonic, and try-hard that it makes you cringe. And that last point is exactly where this entry comes into play. One of the biggest complaints people had about this action RPG was the Marvel-esque dialogue, especially the conversations between protagonist Frey and her talking bracelet Cuff. Listening to these two banter back and forth with lackluster one-liners and uninspired quips left many players feeling frustrated and wishing they could just mute them. The game even came with an option to adjust the frequency of their dialogue. However, Forspoken had to change itself even further, as the cringeworthy banter caught plenty of flack even with this slider involved. So a patch was released 4 months after the game came out, as covered via Eurogamer, that further reduced the frequency and content of their banter during open world activities. Now imagine your writing being so bad that people just want to mute you. Can't relate! Next up, unfortunate graffiti placement, Stellar Blade. Set dressing is the kind of thing most gamers won't notice. Small in-world details are intended to make the environment feel alive, usually without distracting the player too much. So imagine how embarrassed the devs for Stellar Blade must have felt when they realized the massive blunder that they'd made due to some awkward graffiti placement. Because yeah, nobody could ignore this. One piece of Stellar Blade's elaborate visual design is the use of graffiti, with designs appearing throughout the game. It also has a selection of vendors, one of which is called Roxanne. This is all pretty innocent, but it was less so when some accidental graffiti placement, which spelled out the word hard, was placed right next to a sign for Roxanne's shop that was simply the words "our shop." Yeah, the devs accidentally alluded to a racial slur by placing the word hard right next door to the letter R. Sony themselves had a comment on this mistake, as per Forbes, calling it an, quote, unintentional objectional phrase, and then patched it out. Next up, Pac-Man. If you're a fan of the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, then you probably already know this one. However, for anyone who isn't aware, the moral of this story is that gamers cannot be trusted. Pac-Man, of course, is a gaming icon that the whole world knows. You could find someone living inside a cave in a distant, far-off land, probably not even on this planet, and they'd probably still say, oh yeah, that's the Waka Waka guy. And if you're wondering, the Waka Waka woman, of course, is not Miss Pac-Man, but rather Shakira. I was proud of that joke. The point is, his name has undergone a slight transformation as his original Japanese iteration was known as Pac-Man. The original name came from the Japanese phrase "paku paku taberu," which is used to describe the sounds and action of gobbling things up. However, this moniker was abandoned when the game was released in North America, as there was concern, naturally, that his name would be vandalized, with the P being replaced with an F. And yeah, it wouldn't look great on Namco to see the words, well, you can imagine them on their machines, so you can see the concern. It is fascinating to know that a fear of arcade hooliganism, though, led to such an iconic name being born. Next up, the studio was afraid of Sean Connery, Goldeneye. Gaming myths were rampant in the pre-internet era, with a particularly popular one being the all bonds cheat. This urban legend claimed that the N64 classic shooter Goldeneye featured a cheat that would unlock models for nearly every iteration of Bond, letting you and your friends duke it out to see which one was the best. This was naturally false, however, while the rumor itself was a hoax, it's surprising to know how close to reality it actually was. That's because there were plans to include a 4-Bond mode, including Sean Connery, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, and Pierce Brosnan, and tough luck for George Lazenby. However, this concept was scrapped, and during an interview with The Independent, the game's director, Martin Hollis, revealed that the reason the mode was removed was because the company was afraid of what cinema's first Bond would do to them. I think they were worried about him getting litigious, Hollis claimed. While the idea would have been amazing, it seems incurring the wrath of the original 007 wasn't a risk worth taking. Next up, many unexpected results, Dwarf Fortress. For those unfamiliar with Dwarf Fortress, this is a bonkers management and construction simulator game with uncompromising levels of complexity. As such, it has some of the funniest patch notes, as collected by PC Gamer, that you'll find in any game ever. Some of the things the devs had to fix due to unexpected outcomes, I swear down, will leave you in stitches. I mean, just look at some of these highlights. There's one that says fixed bugs where animals could rent rooms, fixed bugs with mules shitting luggage, stopped children from buying shops, weasels probably shouldn't be found on glaciers, rodent man has no teeth, and the iconic added cat butchery. I don't even know what that last one means. I mean, I can kind of get it, but I kind of don't want to get it, you know what I mean? Another particularly amusing alteration the game needed to make was for the sake of saving the dwarf kids. It turns out that forgetting to dress them once they turned 2 years old was leading to them dying of embarrassment, literally. Unlike other entries on this list, the thrill of this game is in its unpredictability and weirdness though. As such, these goofy changes are part of the broader appeal of this absolutely absurd title. Next up, the Drunken Princess, Super Mario Kart. The bright, fun, inviting world of Mario Kart is about as controversial as a butterfly resting on a flower. This series is renowned worldwide for its family-friendly content and wholesome overall vibe. That's what makes it so funny then to learn that the first game in the series had to make a controversial change when bringing the game to America, and it was all down to the villainous Bowser and the charming Princess Peach. After achieving victory in Super Mario Kart, each character performs a unique animation while holding a bottle of champagne. While most characters just toy about with it, the original Japanese release saw 2 characters crack it open and neck it to their heart's content. Those figures, as you might have guessed, were Bowser and Peach. Now, Bowser's messy chugging does feel pretty fitting, but seeing the affable Princess Peach get all flushed upon drowning champagne was a little less familiar. As such, Nintendo America saw it fit to change these animations when localizing to the West, switching to Bowser cheering and Peach throwing the bottle up and down like it was a football. Bring it back, I say though knowing Nintendo, they'll probably charge extra for it, wouldn't they? The original name was less than PG, Dark Souls. It's hard to think of a franchise that has had a bigger impact on modern gaming than Dark Souls. Damn near every gamer has an opinion on it one way or another, whether it be decrying it as a masterpiece or lamenting its punishing difficulty. But, and that is a choice word as you'll soon see, the iconic name of Dark Souls came very close to being something else, with a last-minute alteration saving FromSoft some major embarrassment. That's because the game went through a few names as per the gamer, with one of the original ideas being Dark Race, a name that obviously was better left by the wayside. Its firmest moniker, however, was Dark Ring. Now that seems innocent enough, but a decision was made at the last minute to change the name as the British devs stepped in to inform FromSoft that this title might be interpreted as something else in the UK. And if you don't know, that's because the term is often used as a slang term in the UK for, you know, the bum, the bot, the arse, the backside, the rear, the cheeks, but more specifically the butthole, referred to in the UK by wrong'uns everywhere as the ring. As such, something about the name Dark Ring just felt a little off. And rings lights, rings born, rings lights, yeah, I don't think any of these quite have the same ring to them either. Even though if Elden Ring came out first, they probably would. Elden Ring was good, wasn't it? It was a good title, that, yeah, definitely. Imagine if that was called Dark Ring as well. Doesn't bear thinking about. Next up, the fans demanded cake, Dead by Daylight. When thinking about the monstrous Silent Hill villain Pyramid Head, a lot of things probably come to mind. There's his oversized headpiece, the tendency to chase you, the berserk-style sword, and more. However, if you're a Dead by Daylight fan, you might instead think of cake, but not the bakery kind, the one I was just on about. You know, the bum, the bot, the ass, the... Yeah, you get the joke. When Pyramid Head, known in the game as the Executioner, was announced for DBD, his early promotional work showed that he'd been given a damn rotund backside. Fans, naturally, were overjoyed to see their monstrous villain so well caked up. Sadly, this excitement was marred by controversy when the character finally appeared in-game, with a noticeable nerf to his posterior. Posterior. I don't know how to pronounce it, you know what I mean. The bum, the ass, the butt. This is said to be loopy. The backlash to this was, while mostly ironic, pretty notable, as covered here by the gamer, which drew the attention of the devs. Thankfully, the 5.1.1 update brought the bakery back with a patch note reading, quote, fixed an issue that caused the Executioner's rear to be too flat. So yeah, what a victory for gaming. While the developers have claimed the butt reduction was due to a technical issue, it's notable that his flatness was listed under known issues in the patch notes. So it seems that Behaviour Interactive is more than aware of what the fans are worried about. Up next, it needed to be hornier, Baldur's Gate 3. If you've played Baldur's Gate 3, which everyone in the world should do by the way, then you'll know the game is hornier than a tiefling. There's barely any companions who aren't looking to pounce on the player, with romances being a massive part of the game. Hell, at times it even feels like a straight-up dating sim. However, while you might assume this was a path the devs always planned to walk, it was actually a deliberate change in the direction that was prompted by player feedback. Because, in the words of one of the developers, when discussing the BG3 player base, quote, they're all horny. End quote. Baldur's Gate 3 went through an extensive early access period, refining the game's themes, story, and more, with player opinions always in mind. Well, this feedback, as per IGN, led the team to realize they needed to up the amount of romance in the game. According to the same developer, only about 1% of players were uninterested in actually having a romance, and as such, BG3 became what it is. So that's right, the players brought this on themselves. Now, this is the end of the list. Go and chat up those frog people, go and talk to the hot vampires, and get ravaged by the guy who turns into a bear. But before you go, let me know if you have any similar stories down in the comments below, and if you want more content like this, click one of the videos on screen right now.